G'day and ho, ho, ho. I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and I live in a subtropical climate just north of Brisbane, similar to some parts of Florida in the USA. Here in Australia, we're in summer. So instead of a cold white Christmas, we have a white hot Christmas that's wet and more humid than Santa's underpants. In this video, I'm going to show you what's growing over the Christmas period right here in our own vegetable garden. Let's get into it. Ho, ho, ho. The other day I was up at Cooroy giving a talk to the Noosa permaculture community. It was a great night, by the way. Thanks a lot, fellas, for inviting me up there. It was a terrific evening. I had a great time and you were very, very warm and helpful. But one of you asked the question, Mark, in this horrible, hot, humid weather, can you actually grow anything at all here through summer? And I said, mate, you can grow a whole heap of things. Only to go completely blank. It was like someone had asked me to name all of Santa's reindeers. Rudolph, and Rudolph. Anyway, I thought of a few things. Egyptian spinach, I think I mentioned corn, and I just could not think of anything in front of several hundred people. Which was a little bit embarrassing, but sometimes you get that when you're talking to a big crowd and you get a question out of the blue and you just can't think of anything. So I was stewing on it, and I was Christmas stewing it, I was Christmas pudding in it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a video just before Christmas and I'm going to go through, because I know there's heaps you can grow with the sweat pouring off me. And it's only early in the morning, it's about 8, in a Christmas humid garden. You've got to forgive some of the weeds and that are through there, and it's a little bit untidy in places. I've been flat out trying to get this garden all nice for Christmas. We're having some family over. And of course, you know, you want the place looking the best, but we are just getting hammered with rain. The weeds and the grass grows faster than Santa's present list at this time of year. It is incredible. I've got a few experiments going in this bed. I've got some turmeric here that came out of nowhere. I've got a bit of ginger that I've just replanted. Some eggplant, seedlings that I've just put at the back here after doing a bit of weeding. This cucumber, it's a cross cucumber. It's a cross between a Lebanese and I think type of brown Indian cucumber. They've somehow cross-pollinated, and I noticed this came up last summer and it's produced a similar type. So now I know it's kind of true to type, and they taste really good even though they're big. They don't go bitter, but it's unusual for a cucumber to grow this well through the summer heat. So I'm hoping it's climatizing, and maybe I can get a cucumber that will grow through the middle of summer, which would be fantastic, without any protection or anything like that, just out in the open like it is now. And the only other thing I've got here is, hello little one, what are you doing? There you go, say hello to Bella. Hello, Merry Christmas. Yes, 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 yes. The only other thing I've got here is this pea. And this thing thrives in the middle of summer. They cook up just like a normal pea, except they taste a bit like asparagus, so they're called an asparagus pea. This next bed along, if you've been watching my videos, you'd know that this one here is this experiment that we've got going with Weedy about this electroculture. Copper wire wrapped around posts, supposed to go into the bed and make the plants grow better. We've got a control bed that you'll see coming up soon as we go through. That's down past the back there. It's exactly the same sized bed, exactly the same plants, and the same type of soil mix as well. Chilies, which are starting to fruit. Eggplant, which are also fruiting and looking very good. Corn, which is growing a little bit stunted, but it's still looking very healthy. A few more months yet to go in this experiment, and then we'll compare both those beds over those 3 months and see which one has performed better. Does electroculture work or doesn't it? The next one along here is our no dig, no soil raised garden bed. So we haven't used any soil in here. We've just filled it with sugarcane mulch, put in compost and used other materials except for real soil to top this bed up, and we're continuing to do it. What I've done here is planted or sowed some rosella seed. Rosella grows really well through summer. The leaves can be used as a salad, and of course the calyx of the flower of the rosella, well, it can be used in drinks, can be made into jams, sugar treat if you want to candy it. The hotter it gets, the more it loves it. In this last bed here, in this first row, it looks like it's a ton of weeds, and it's true, it is. Look, I don't mind weeding up my garden beds as long as they don't go to flower. I then knock them back and I can dig those weeds in, and I always do this. I do it a lot. Sometimes I do properly weed. I do that a lot too, especially this time of year, but if you smash them down before they go to seed, they can add some really good value to your soil mix and feed the worms and microbes and make that soil living. However, I do have a few things that are growing in here that I need to weed around and give these plants a better chance. The first one is beetle leaf. Beetle leaf, the spider on that one, it's a typically Asian. You can use it raw or cooked like a vegetable. You can use them in wraps, and it grows really well in these hot conditions. I've also in here got two other things. This nut that I'm just learning how it grows and what I can use it for. It has these round tubers that you can eat like a vegetable. And the other thing in here is another ginger related crop. It's probably more spicier than ginger, but it's called Chinese keys or karachi or something like that. And yeah, it can be eaten raw, pickled, chopped up and used in stews. It's particularly good with seafood, used just like typical ginger is, except it just has a slightly different taste to it. Moving to the next row, this bed here is pretty much how you see it. It's full of weeds. A lot of this is nutgrass though. That's really unfortunate. Nutgrass is a big problem around here and in Australia. It can really damage, well, some people's lawns. I don't care about the lawn too much, although our lawn looks great because of all this rain and it's lush as. Some people find nutgrass invasive in their lawns. It ruins their beautiful suburban turf. But here, it gets in our garden beds, and to control it, what you have to do is keep digging it out, and it can be really difficult to get rid of. When we went away overseas for a month, unfortunately the nutgrass took over two of these beds, and now I've got to get rid of it. So I've got a plan to organically get rid of it, and I've just left it grow out at the moment, and I'll show you that plan in the new year on how I'm going to snuff it out organically without, using heaps of potent chemicals that would ruin your garden bed and you wouldn't be able to grow food in it. This next bed along, it's just got normal weeds in it. I'll be weeding this out and probably planting something else in here. I have noticed a bit of mustard growing. It's out of season really, even though mustard is a good hot Asian salad crop. It still suffers terribly here through the middle of summer. Doesn't usually grow, it's just come out of season, and maybe it's starting to acclimatise. I'll watch it and let it grow on and see how it goes, but I don't think it's going to get nice and big. And this last wooden raised bed here, it's got all weeds and nutgrass in it as well, and it also has this purple yam that I was trying to not get rid of, but I've transplanted. It grows a bit like sweet potato. It even looks a bit like a sweet potato leaf, but it's a massive purple thing that is good to be used as a carb. I mean, it's a great survival crop because you can't kill it, and it just produces such a lot of carb that in a survival situation would be terrific to just grow wild in your garden. So because of all the nutgrass taking over this bed, and I want to organically snuff that out, I'm going to dismantle this trellis, and I've transplanted this yam down the back, and you'll see where I've transplanted it. I only transplanted it about a month ago, and you should see it now. It's ridiculously fast growing at this time of year. It goes dormant in winter, but loves the heat. These long, thin beds on this side here, there's not a lot going on in them except for this first one maybe, and I'll skip through the other three. I did have other crops growing in it through leading into summer, but then I'm just giving some of them a bit of a rest. But in this first one here, it didn't have anything in it through spring or anything like that. Here's some grass that could get pulled up while I'm here. But it's got turmeric in it. In the middle here is something that I thought that I'd forgotten, which I did forget, but I mean, I didn't deliberately plant it. I thought I had run out of Jerusalem artichoke. I inadvertently, we'd eaten it all, and then I realized that, oh bugger it, I didn't leave some tubers behind to replant it for the next season. I've done that several times, and then you've got to go and buy some more. But luckily, and this has happened several times to me as well, it saves the day when you've left a few of the tubers in the ground the last season. And thank goodness, I was hoping it would come up, and it has come up again. But in the meantime, I thought that it was all gone, so I started planting other crops in here, and I was going to turn this into a turmeric bed. The Jerusalem artichoke, it will outgrow the turmeric and go to flower and get much bigger, so it's not going to be impeded, and we'll get at least a good crop of Jerusalem that I can maybe repickle, or we can use in like a potato, anything like that. Yes, I always call it the fartichoke because it can give you a bit of gas, and for some people that's worse than others. In our family it can be quite funny, especially around the Christmas dinner table. But or maybe not funny, depends on who's visiting. If the in-laws are there, I don't think they'd see the funny side of it. But yeah, this will grow well, and what I'll do is I'll make sure that I keep some more tubers, and I typically like to grow Jerusalem artichoke in its own bed so that it can just spread out and grow plenty of tubers and give it its own area and space. And of course, I probably shouldn't skip over turmeric. And it's a wonderful summer crop. It's just rudimentary to me. I just grow it all the time. I grow it in containers. I grow it in garden beds all over the place. It's really easy to grow in a hot, humid climate. And it's one of the best, as you'd know, best spices and herbs that you could have for health and for flavour. Everything from colouring butter through to making fantastic curries and being good for your health, and being used in the pharmaceutical industry for all sorts of health products. So if you can grow it at home, yeah, do it. Coming along here, there's a bit of sweet potato there. There's nothing in this bed. I did grow some onions in here through spring and winter. Here's some garlic chives that I've replanted from a herb garden because I'm just taking over everything. This is a really valuable crop to grow, and it grows well all year round here, and it's even thriving through the heat of our summer. Very good substitute for real garlic and onions and other things, giving a good flavour to, say, potato salads and all sorts of dishes, stir fries. And then here, really haven't got much growing. This artichoke grew well through winter and into spring, and we didn't harvest any of the heads because they came into flower when we were away. Then over to my right, we might as well go here and then back through the middle. I've planted a whole heap of eggplants in here. Eggplant is a great vegetable to grow through a hot, humid summer. You'd think that they thrive only in, hot, maybe warm, dry climates, temperate climates, but that's not the case. They will thrive through the hot, humid summers that we have here. And I find that the purple and white striped varieties are one of the most hardiest, whereas some of the big, I think they're called Black Beauty or something like that. Anyway, the big varieties of eggplants can get diseases and are a bit fickle, whereas some of these purple striped varieties, I'll show you one down here, and they're an heirloom variety. They tend to grow a lot better, so I've been migrating to them. They're not as big as those big black eggplants are, but they're still great to eat. Scattered around here is some Egyptian spinach, and that just comes up for us every year in the middle of summer. So it's a fantastic summer salad crop, good in quiches, and it's good just to let grow, go to seed, use it, and goes to seed then through winter, dies off, and then comes back again at the end of spring and into summer, just when you need it, when other salad crops like lettuce and cabbage and brassicas are all dead and you can't grow them at this time of year. It's just way too humid and too many pests that attack those plants. Through the middle here, I'm over summering because we grow strawberries through winter. There's a big horsefly there. You come back again, you're a goner, mate. You will be a goner. It'll be Merry Christmas lights out for you. So yes, what I was saying is the strawberries are over summered. So we baby them, we give them plenty of water, and we try to get them through over the summer period. You can see that these are runners. So instead of putting out their runners in spring like a normal climate, after they finish growing through summer and spring before autumn, these will put their runners out through the middle of summer. And then what you can do is you can put them in a nursery or in a shade house, and you can grow those runners for your next season crop and replace those old strawberry plants, or plant them into new raised garden beds or pots or containers. Strawberries are a fantastic crop, as you know. There are a few, well, I've probably got 5 or 6 strawberry beds in this central part here. Some of the ones at the end there are still fruiting, and this one here is still fruiting, but the fruit's small. It's not really edible. It is, but it's not very appealing. I just let them go, and like I said, I'll make use of those runners and just keep babying them, keep the water up, maybe give them a little bit of fertilizer, keep them alive until the weather starts to cool down in autumn, and then they come back to life again and you start having strawberries all through winter. In this center bed here, I've got this Tamarello, and the reason why I'm experimenting with it in this container with some strawberries around the base is so that I can keep it alive. Tamarellos grow well through the heat and they fruit through the summer. These are starting to turn red now. It's a red variety, this one. The problem with the plant though is if you get a lot of rain and it's in the ground, it will quickly die. The roots rot very fast in wet weather, especially if your soil is heavy like ours is. So I've lost a lot of Tamarellos over the years growing them in the orchard and in the ground, and so now I'm experimenting growing them in containers, and it's so far so good. This next row from this rectangular type of bed coming at a 90-degree angle from that last sort of middle row, in here we've got more Egyptian spinach growing. There's a bit of sweet potato, but I've just left that in there. I'm not deliberately growing sweet potato in here, and the bed's having a bit of a rest, to be honest. Behind it here is our mint, which is now looking straggly. It always does this. You can still use it through summer, but it dies back severely and it suffers. Again, it's a bit like strawberries. You keep the water up to it and it comes back to life. You got to give it a bit of compost, a little bit of fertilizer, and it goes crazy once the weather starts to cool down again and just puffs up into beautiful green plump mint. But you can still use some of these select leaves here and make plenty of mojitos over the Christmas period. That would give you a very Merry Christmas. I noticed that I've got a pumpkin here. That's a Japanese pumpkin. The pumpkin grows all year round here, especially the Jap or the Kent pumpkins. I just love it as a pumpkin for flavour and for growing, and if you've been watching my channel for the last decade, you'd know that you just can't kill that thing in our garden. But I do like it coming up randomly, and we've got it all around the place. It really is a fantastic crop through summer, where a lot of other cucurbits, they get powdery mildew and they won't survive and they find it difficult to grow. This particular pumpkin, it grows through the hottest time of the year. Another good carb is this one here, which is sweet potato, as you can see, taking over this small round raised garden bed. I don't need to talk too much about sweet potato. It's another one of those staples for a hot, warm climate. And speaking of carbohydrates, look at this taro, absolutely thriving in this other raised round garden bed. Another terrific food crop to grow in the middle of summer in a really hot climate. Next to it, you can see that this parsley is mostly going to seed. You can still eat it like this. There's enough leaves on there. This is a flat leaf parsley. I like this variety because it does go to seed. It goes to seed easier than curly leaf parsley does, but it tastes just as good in my opinion. And you can then collect those seeds, or it just reshoots through when the weather cools down, and then it just starts up again. So it's a perpetual type of crop, a bit like the Egyptian spinach, that just keeps coming back and keeps growing for you every season without you even trying. Below here I've got some more garlic chives and a little bit of verbena herb in there. More strawberries here in this bed. Get a bit of shade from this passion fruit that's growing here. The passion fruit hasn't got any fruit on it at the moment. That'll start fruiting towards the end of summer, and you'll typically get fruit through winter, but you can see it's powering along. It's looking really good in its second season. And in the front of these passion fruits, we've got these chilies that you can hardly see. They're a Serrano orange. Really good flavour. A bit like a habanero, but not quite as heat, or not quite as hot as a habanero, but a similar tang. So I don't like chilies just for the heat. Chilies have to taste good for me to enjoy them. I like the tanginess of a chili. So flavour of a chili to me is very important. And these give out a really good flavour, and they're very hardy. This is about the third season that we've grown them in a row, perpetually, so like a perennial. We just cut them back through winter, and then they give them a bit of fertiliser, and then they sprout back when summer hits. In this first bed here is just weeds again, but I'll get rid of them in one way or another. I just have been giving it a bit of a rest. I was growing potatoes in it last season. The next one here is probably more interesting. I'll bring you in closer because that's the bed that is the control bed for the electroculture experiment. It has the same things growing in it. It's got the chilies, the eggplant, which are starting to fruit, a little bit behind the front bed. The chilies are a little bit behind as well. And you've got the corn, which is a bit ahead and a little bit larger. So there's a few differences at this point in time. I don't want to preempt the experiment at all, but surprisingly, this control bed here isn't doing quite as good as the electroculture bed. Seems to have a few more pests, but it's early days, so I'm not going to preempt anything, and we'll see in a couple more months which one has outdone the other, or if there's much difference at all. The next bed along, there's nothing in it. I'm just continually weeding this one. I might grow even more taro as a spillover into this bed next season, because as you can see, this bed here is just chockers full of taro that I just replanted for about the third season in a row, and it just keeps on getting bigger and better. And now over to the gourd tunnel, which looks like it's growing a whole heap of stuff, but most of it is weeds, weed vine, and bitter gourd. Yes, the good old bitter gourd. Wow. I just wish I liked to eat it. It grows so prolifically. It grows as good as any of these other really big summer crops like taro and sweet potato and purple yam. except like its name, it tastes really bitter. Yeah, like the Asian, community, they write to me and they say, Mark, you just gotta salt it and chop it up and rinse it, and then it's really good in stir fries and stuff. I've done all that. I've tried salting it. It's still too bitter for me. If you've got any ideas on how I can, because I can't get rid of it. I've tried. I pull it out all the time. It grows profusely through summer. It starts in spring, starts coming up in the garden beds. And if you don't control it, it'll control you. It's like a triffid. Anyway, if you've got any great ideas on how I can cook, prepare and eat this, let me know. Besides this salting and thing. Because if we could eat this and enjoy it, I want to enjoy it. I don't eat things just for the sake of it. If we can enjoy it, I'm happy to keep growing it, even though I'm going to have to keep growing it anyway, because you can't get rid of it. Other things that are in here is some radicchio that is somehow suffering the summer heat, maybe because of part shade. Again, mostly weeds. And on this side, I've just, in these small raised herb garden beds, I've got one eggplant in each. I actually started a whole heap of eggplants in this one bed, and I took the seedlings out and transplanted them over into that round raised garden bed that I showed you earlier on. And then I just left one of those eggplants in that one. That's why that one there is the strongest. It hasn't been transplanted, but it's the same age as all the other ones that I've transplanted. I've got to get rid of the spider webs. Plenty of spiders at this time of year as well. But yeah, all you can see here is mostly bitter gourd and weeds, which I'll have to take care of that. These two little ones they mirror the other side where I've got the eggplant in. I've got some corn in here. They're actually grown from a company called Survival Seeds, speaking a lot about survival crops. They're worth taking a look at. I'll also have a link below in the description to their website. This fella is a Toowoomba boy like myself, so he's a local fella, and he started Survival Seeds over COVID when he realised that he couldn't buy any seeds, and so he thought, that's never going to happen to me ever again. I'm going to become a seed store. And that's what he's been doing for the last 4 years, trying to develop his business here in Australia and the US. Not quite done yet. So it's a long haul small business. Even a seed store is hard work, but I love his passion, and I'm going to work with him. So yeah, you can get a discount if you want to get some of his survival seeds. I'm starting on some of the corn. I need to transplant some of this. It all came up. I oversow. I only want about 4 in each of those small raised garden beds. I only want 4 stalks. So I'll have to transplant them somewhere else. Now moving on to the back of the gourd tunnel, there is this here that I want to show you, and that's our asparagus bed. What a fantastic crop this is. What you're seeing now is the asparagus growing out. It's past its eating stage. You can harvest it typically in spring when it's coming through nice and fresh and it's just first starting to grow. And then you've got to leave it grow out, especially in a hot climate like this. You've got to let it grow out. Otherwise, the harsh sun will hurt it big time, and it'll run out of energy by the time it gets past summer into winter when it starts to go dormant. And then you'll have a pretty poor crop the next season, or no crop at all, because it has no more energy to regrow. So you've got to be aware of that when you're growing asparagus, to leave it actually grow out. Don't keep eating it all the time. I really think this is one of the best crops in our garden, because asparagus is a perennial. These last 20 to 25 years or more, and you can just keep replacing those crops with your own seed that gets sown. It can self-seed itself, or you can buy the seed, or you can transplant new crowns. But 25 years of eating asparagus or a vegetable in your garden is pretty spectacular. And growing in all types of environments, including this really hot climate, I think it's one of my top 10 veggies to grow in any garden. More spiders. I'll just get rid of them. These are some of my oldest raised garden beds. These are the ones that I did get in 2008. In here I've got sweet potato growing and a number of weeds at the moment as well. The next bed down, I have some more weeds in it by the looks of it. Just having a bit of a rest. It's not the best here. As you can see, this rain is down the back here. This is why I'm growing in raised garden beds, especially down the back, because it is just way too wet. And raised garden beds at least gets you out of that mud, but it's uncomfortable to garden down here at the moment. It's been wet and boggy down here for about 2.5 years. It has had times where it's been nice and dry, but this last few years it's just been raining non-stop. Plenty of spiders. Don't know why they just keep coming across my pathway. It makes it even more uncomfortable. This here is, speaking of uncomfortable, this here is the Atherton raspberry, Atherton Tabulans to be exact, raspberry, and by jingoes, you don't want to get spiked by this bush. Whew! Got some great berries, but yeah, it's a dangerous thing. So I'll duck underneath that, and in this bed to my left is onions that I haven't harvested yet. There's a brown, and I've crowd grown them, so they're mostly only small. I've got to harvest them. I'll harvest them in the next few days. And then there's this white one in the middle. Here they are. I mean, I've been lucky that through all this rain they haven't gone all rotten. I'm going to be able to harvest these hopefully today or tomorrow, and we'll have some nice onions all ready to go for Christmas. Put them there. In this bed here there's nothing, just weeds. Knock them down or dig them in. This here is an elephant yam. Really good eating and a fantastic crop for summer, a really hot summer. It only comes up when it heats up. It's actually quite late. It's a late crop grower. It'll sprout at the end of spring mostly, and then it turns into this beautiful big towering plant. And the tubers are like an elephant's foot and they taste really good. It's similar to sweet potato. And then in the bed next to it, underneath that Hoselink reel, is Hoselink got a new reel out. Did you know that? Get 10% discount. Links below. Underneath that is water chestnuts, which are another great crop to grow in the heat. And they come back when it gets hot and rainy and humid, and they just love it. And it's another, yeah, it's a bit finicky to peel the water chestnuts and everything, but they're not growing in a muddy drain. They're not grown with chemicals. You know what you're getting when you get your own water chestnuts. Here she is, the purple yam. Like I said, I only just transplanted this, and look at it, going nuts bananas. And amongst the purple yam, and I let this grow as well, is this cucumber vine, and that's the African horned cucumber. I don't normally grow it deliberately, but this time I'm going to. I've had a bit of a change of heart on the African horned cucumber. It grows really well this time of year. It's a bit of a space waster because the fruit doesn't develop until later, and the actual vine grows everywhere and it takes up a lot of space. But I thought I might let it compete with this yam because neither of them can kill each other. They'll fight really good. And I don't mind the horned cucumber now. I used to not like it because of its growth pattern and because the fruit isn't that fantastic. But now I'm starting to think maybe the fruit's not bad, it's very good for you, and it's got a high price at the supermarket. If you ever see them, you know, you're paying like $9 or something a fruit. It's ridiculous. So I'm thinking I might just grow it quietly down the back where it can't get out of control, and you know, I don't mind the tangy taste of it. And all those seeds, they just slide down the gullet pretty easily, a bit like brandy and ice cream on Christmas Day. But yeah, I'm still experimenting with the purple yam. So the jury's out on that one. I know it's great carb and I want to keep growing it, but different ways to cook and prepare it, I haven't done a lot of that yet. And so I'm going to experiment more before I do a full video purposely on purple yam. Purple yam, purple yam. Isn't that some type of Christmassy song? Probably not. Behind it is a yacon, and that there is another plant that thrives through the middle of summer and is a really nice, I reckon it's a great substitute for sugar. If you want to juice it and add that sugar to a dessert or to a drink to get that sweetness, that is the thing to use. They also call it ground apple. It tastes really good. I won't give you a demo now, but I've demoed it many times on my channel. And past the yacon, I really should have, I've just split it by trying to lift that up. I'll actually pick these while I'm here. These are the purple and white stripy eggplant that I was talking about. And it's time for me to pick them. They won't get much bigger than this. I just grew a few here with a couple of Congo potatoes that are still going. They're fairly tough potato, the Congo, and they came up again in this bed because I missed a few. I'd grew them in here before, and I thought I'd just whack a few of these eggplants in here as well because I had some spare earlier on in the season. And these are an heirloom crop, so you can keep the seeds and regrow them time and time again. And I'm going to be making an Italian antipasto dish out of these, which the whole family loves for Christmas. What I need to do is stake them properly and tie them up, which I will do. Even that is going to help. And get rid of a few of the weeds. I'll come back and tidy them up. But look at these fellas. Just look at them. How gorgeous. Beautiful tasting. Yeah, that's about the big as they get, these purple variety, purple stripes. But still big. And you don't get those disease problems that you can get with those bigger black ones. Black Beauty or something, whatever they're called. But yeah, so we'll keep moving on. We're nearly done. So we've already talked about the Atherton berry. Next one here is a Loganberry. Hasn't fruited yet, it's still early. In this bed here is a Heritage Raspberry. Again, it's its first season, no fruit. So I will push these canes up, give it a bit of a trim back after summer, and hopefully the next season we'll have raspberries. In here are a bunch of weeds. I was growing a cherry tree and it's died. That experiment is probably over for me, trying to grow cherries in a subtropical climate, even though they reckon that this is a warm climate cherry that they've bred. Still no good. Next to it here is this dwarf coconut, and it has small coconuts as well, so the tree doesn't grow very big, or the plant, and the coconuts are small, so it's going okay. I need to do a bit of weeding around here. I'm growing it in a more of a sandy loamy mix, so I'm hoping it enjoys that. It seems to be liking the heat, so that's a good sign, but no coconuts yet. And here is our blueberries that the bed had sunk, and I replaced a lot of the soil, and I'm doing a few experiments with crowd growing these blueberries in this raised garden bed, and it's still going pretty good. A few of them have suffered a little bit, but I'm working on that, and I've given them some extra trace elements and some more fertilizer, and that seems to be picking those plants up well. And lastly, past these compost bays, we've got these long raised garden beds that you might remember if you watch my videos a fair bit, that I grew potatoes in both of these beds. Pretty successfully too. but you can't grow potatoes at this time of year. I'm just resting these beds. I need to give them both a good weed and probably a pep up a bit of a dig in. But at the moment, there's nothing growing in them. So that is the final wrap up, the final Christmas present wrap up of our Christmas garden. As you can see, just because it's hot, humid, and pretty ugly and wet through our Christmas summer, you can still grow a lot of beautiful nourishment and food in your self-sufficient garden. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big self-sufficient Christmas thumbs up, share it around, because sharing is great at Christmas time, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for watching. Ho 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 if I had my hoe. Merry Christmas, and I'll catch you in the new year. Cheers.